But welcome everybody. Be sure to hit the like button. Be sure to hit the subscribe button.
I remember in middle school when you felt self-conscious if you were the last one to go through puberty. That really went topsy-turvy, didn't it?
Sometimes the Hasbara, it's too much explaining yourself and it's too apologetic.
Be sure to hit the notifications bell.
I actually do believe Israel won't just bomb countless civilians.
Be sure to tweet this out. Be sure to put this up on your Facebook.
You have to be kind to people. Being kind is the guys in this mess in the first place.
Put this up on your Reddit.
Chile is a country.
Be sure to cut and paste, a link to this to go into your favorite Facebook chat group.
It's good to see so many normal people in here.
Now, spanking isn't just my deep, dark personal secret. It's America's deep, dark secret.
I've never seen it explained so simply anywhere.
Put this on WhatsApp. Put this on Telegram. Put this on your favorite messenger app.
Hello and welcome to the Untitled Anarchist Seagull channel. I'm your host, an Untitled Anarchist Seagull called Elise, and, well, I think we had a pretty good stream last night, and I was, today was actually, I didn't have any, boiling oil geysers, which was an improvement over last night, I really have to say. So we had started last stream to watch a video from Project 2025, which was about left-wing code words and language, really specific left-wing stuff like the existence of climate change. And they were just explaining to us how they didn't know the difference between climate and weather, which clearly qualifies them to talk about these things. But we had also, for the first time on this stream, looked at somebody I kept on hearing about but never really saw anything from, a shithead called Asmongold, who just basically is sort of like a racist goldfish, apparently. And so I decided to just look a little bit more at his channel and see if there's any more bullshit from him to look at as well. How's everybody doing, chat? Let's see. There's also Graham Linehan, one of the world's most divorced men, on the current comedy landscape and the impact of cancel culture, which I'm kind of curious about. I'm thinking, the Asmongold that I found is him watching a Donald Trump, Elon Musk interview, which that's definitely going to be a thing. It will definitely be some sort of content. I mean, the content of, at the very least, the small intestine. So, maybe let's start out watching a little bit more of the Project 2025 training video.
I think about the people who don't want you to have children because of the impact on the environment. Facing our country today is, drumroll, climate change. Not Russia, not China, not AI.
Oh yeah, this is right. That's right. They were talking about how the Pentagon's own internal assessments, and it's worth noting going back decades, say that one of the major sources of, as they put it, instability is climate change and things like the mass migration as places become uninhabitable and the scarcity of water and things like that. And one of the things that really struck me as I'm listening to this is that the people this is for are clearly not people who are selling it. They are people who bought it. Because you would have a completely different conversation, a completely different training video if you were talking to people who knew what the deal was and you were trying to explain to them how to lie about it. if you, on the other hand, this is like, for people, the idea is these political appointees who are supposed to watch this thing, clearly they just assume they're total rubes, and they wouldn't be so much lying as they literally have no fucking clue what the hell they're talking about. I know that's a real shock when you look at the fucking Trump administration appointees, that they wouldn't know what the fuck they're talking about, but there we are.
This shows how the federal government is all in on this issue, and climate change activists wield a lot of power.
As you can tell from the fact that literally no one in the entire political class will even commit to doing the absolute bare minimum that the IPCC says is necessary in order to avoid the absolute worst case scenario. Clearly, I mean, fucking the climate change activists have a whole lot of power.
This is an issue to pay attention to, as it has infiltrated every part of the federal government. Now, when I think of climate change, I immediately think of population control, don't you?
Well, isn't that so interesting that that's immediately where she goes? And the ironic thing here is, when you look at the way basically every government practically in the global north, I can't think of a single one that's bucking the trend, actually, is just kind of rejecting the Geneva Convention on the legal status of refugees, and just, full in on Fortress Europe, and just making life impossible for non-citizens, and literally just killing refugees in various ways. I mean, one obvious explanation for this, it is because there isn't a popular outcry. To the extent that there even is, it has been massively manufactured by a propaganda campaign that you find basically wherever you go at the moment. And yeah, so population control in the form of basically locking down the borders does seem to be very much part of the response to climate change, even though, some people would like to avoid acknowledging that.
I think about the people who don't want you to have children because of the impact on the environment. Perhaps not everyone will make that connection, but after spending time in the international space trying to protect life, I can tell.
Well, yeah, because, I mean, if there's one thing that the U.S. is doing in the international space, it's fucking protecting life. Ask people in Yemen, ask people in Iraq, and they will all tell you, I mean, the U.S. is just so fucking protective of life. Ask people in Palestine,
Tell you
how protective of life the United States is.
This is part of their ultimate goal, to control people. Let me share a personal example of how the left seeks to permeate every dimension of life.
Notice that she never actually, I mean, this is a thing that is just, as we go through this, just constant, is they will just sort of refer to the left. They never actually say who the left is. It's just anyone who, acknowledges bits of reality, that there is climate change, is the left.
Through their skewed terminology and definition. When I arrived at USAID, I had a career employee ask me how many children I had. I thought it was a bit odd of a question.
What do you mean? That's a question people ask. You want to get to know somebody. Oh, you have kids. Oh, how many? That's not an unusual question to ask, actually.
To be kind, I answered, and I said I had 3 children.
Hello, Adam. How you doing?
And he actually said to me, oh, wow, 1.5 too many for the environment. I smiled.
I mean, it does not surprise me that there would be eco-fash at USAID.
I said very politely, if I could have 10 more children, I would. The policy book captures the essence of climate change. And I quote, in the name of combating climate change, policies have been used to create an artificial energy scarcity.
Okay, wait. To the extent that there's an artificial energy scarcity, it's created by the fact that the U.S. keeps starting wars in one of the major energy-producing regions.
That will require trillions of dollars in new investment, supported with taxpayer subsidies.
I wonder if, like, the energy industry as it currently exists is already maybe getting subsidies.
To address a problem that government and special interests themselves have created.
This is just out of the Heritage Foundation's little document, their wish list of shit that they want the next administration to do.
Page 364, end of quote. Population growth, environmental changes, and weather patterns have all been intertwined by the left. They take or even make up a term and create, extend, and alter the definition to validate whatever ideology or position they want to ingrain.
Like, could you give me an example? God, I mean, there's so fucking wood in here, too.
And convince others is good. When
and why is she wearing somebody's dining room wallpaper?
In reality, it's not. Often, as you just heard, they are simply not coherent or logical. Remember, our intelligence community identified climate change as the #1 threat to America. So even if you do not work at the Department of Energy.
So yeah, well, maybe there's a reason that they're doing that. Maybe it's because their entire job is to actually tell the people in charge what threats they have on their radar, to, you know, what threats to the ruling class they have on their radar, and that is one of them. Like,
no matter
I mean, it's actually wild that they will acknowledge this.
Where you work. Because of the Biden administration's executive orders and policy priorities, you will have to look for climate change language and get rid of it.
I mean, the funny thing is, it isn't really so much the Biden administration. The Biden administration didn't really do anything about climate change except to actually make the situation worse. But actually, the Pentagon and probably the CIA have been briefing on the likely impact of climate change on state security going back to the 1990s. So I don't think you could completely blame Biden on that.
Bethany, when you were talking about how the left has co-opted so many words and weaponized so many words when it comes
She's the one on the left there who thinks that climate and weather are the same thing.
To abortion, and that's something that, you know, political appointees in the next administration are going to have to really look at, this idea that it's a right. There's many phrases that included rights.
But it is one, though, is the thing.
Is there other places where rights are used as a catch-all and it means something else?
Well, I mean, that wasn't... see, other implies that she's given one example already. She hasn't. She just listed a thing that is a right that she wants to deny people.
Katie, that's a great question. And in fact, number 3 is human rights. Human rights in border security. So rights, rights, rights. The left is always coming up with new rights. In the Trump administration,
yeah, like, again, it's just the left. She never says who the left is.
Countered human rights with unalienable rights. The careers went absolutely crazy at USAID.
Well, yeah, because that term doesn't mean shit. Like, human rights actually refers to a list of things. Like, as a matter of law, you can actually find a listing of what human rights are. When you say inalienable rights, I mean, that is not a term that actually is in any way as specified as human rights. Like, you can go to the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. You can go to the International Covenant on Civil Political Rights, or the one on Economic, Social, and Cultural Rights, or any number of other human rights documents. The European Convention on Human Rights is one, the Inter-American Convention on Human Rights. There are lots of them, and you can find out exactly what's meant by human rights. But, I mean, inalienable rights, that is a vague term that nobody knows what the fuck it means.
But thankfully, President Trump had established a commission on unalienable rights at the State Department, and we would just point back to the commission. Sadly, our founding documents were not sufficient, but...
Well, yeah, because they suck.
Thankfully, the commission was. The department...
Well, I mean, it's really interesting there, what she just said. She's saying that the Constitution wasn't good enough, but some fucking commission acting behind closed doors to make up a list of rights improves it. I mean, that's a very interesting thing to say.
Department of States Commission on Unalienable Rights was charged with providing the U.S. government with advice on human rights grounded in our nation's founding principles and the principles of the 1948 Universal Declaration of Human Rights.
Well, I mean, the thing is, those are two very different things you just listed, because the Universal Declaration of Human Rights recognizes human rights that the U.S. has never recognized.
Now, I'm going to turn over border security to you, Katie, as it deals with legalese.
And we all know that border...
I mean, yeah, because human rights, there's nothing legalese about the subject of human rights. I mean, it isn't like there are, like, massive, lengthy treatises on the legal significance of the concept or anything like that.
Security is a major issue, and the differences between a conservative presidency and administration and the current administration could...
So far mainly have been that he's deporting 20,000 fewer people every month.
...be more stark than in this area.
That is such a wild thing to say, because at the time that this was being made, the Biden administration's big thing is that they were going to prove that Trump wasn't serious about being a white nationalist by giving, like, the neo-Nazis every single thing they could possibly want in a fucking border lockdown.
So getting the words very precise and correct is crucial. The left has co-opted language and definitions as it relates to immigration. Illegal immigration is one of the most devastating challenges America faces today.
Well, I mean, if you just leave out all the actual things that matter.
Particularly when you factor in all of the secondary costs and effects of illegal immigration.
Well, to whom?
Including illicit drug and human trafficking.
Like, literally, those things are completely unrelated. I mean, the U.S., for all this talk about, like, where's the fentanyl coming from? You know, the fentanyl is coming from here, actually. The U.S. exports it. It is not coming from Mexico. It goes into Mexico from here.
The left knows the American people oppose illegal immigration. And
most of them don't even know what the fuck it means. And most people, I mean, for the most part, don't give a shit. The people who get really excited about this are just white nationalists.
Understands its effects. So they have spent years using language designed to both conflate illegal immigration and legal immigration.
Oh, because see, what they're trying to do is actually the thing that they're accusing whoever the fuck the left is of. Because when you talk about people who have no legal status in the U.S., most of them came in the normal way. Most of them came through normal passport control, got a visa, that visa expired, or for some reason it was revoked. There are a million ways that can happen without a person even necessarily knowing it. And so, yeah.
The latter of which most Americans support. And softening...
Well, I mean, most people in the U.S. have absolutely no idea what that even means. Most people have absolutely no idea what U.S. immigration law is like. Like, that is the thing about talking about immigration, is there are two groups of people. The people who actually know about immigration law, the overwhelming majority of whom know about it because they're subject to it, and the people who whose opinion is treated as if it matters on immigration law, who have absolutely no idea what the fuck it is.
The idea that illegal immigration is, in fact, illegal. It is a good bet that the left has focused group-tested the language it uses to cover up the horrors of illegal immigration.
What horrors? Okay, what horrors? You mean how they, like, pay into Social Security, but they're not allowed to claim Social Security?
For example,
I mean, that is kind of horrible. You mean the fact that all the safe crossings are walled off, so people are having to go through the desert and dying there?
when describing illegal immigration, the left likes to use words and phrases like undocumented immigrants.
Which is also wrong, it's worth noting. Because most of these people are documented. They had legal status at one point and then they lost it.
And migrants. These terms are designed to sound softer.
Yeah, I mean, they're designed to, like, not scaremonger about just fellow workers.
And take the edge off the fact that these people are illegally
Who gives a fuck?
in the United States.
Like, seriously, who gives a fuck? It does not matter to me one bit. It shouldn't matter to anyone one bit whether somebody is currently considered to be in compliance with the Kafkaesque mass of completely unpredictable shit that is U.S. immigration law or not. Because the only reason this immigration law exists is to keep the wages of migrants down. And the reason that it exists to do that is because by keeping the wages of migrants down, by making them more disposable and terrorized, you can drive everybody else's wages down too.
It is important to note that they specifically avoid using the word alien, which is the terminology used in federal law.
Because it's really kind of a fucked up term when you think about it for more than a second.
To be clear, alien is not a negative or pejorative term.
Well, then why do you insist on using it?
It is a legal term of art.
Yes, it is. Like lots of things are, and they also suck.
It simply means that an individual is not a citizen of a particular country.
Well, yeah, but that's what immigrant means too. That's what migrant means too. So why, if it isn't like somehow pejorative, why are you insisting on using that one?
Language matters here for a lot of reasons.
But you just got done saying that there's nothing wrong with alien. So why exactly would you care? I mean, you're saying there's no pejorative edge, so why not just say immigrant or migrant?
But primarily because citizens of the United States have rights that others, including foreign nationals who are illegally on our soil, do not.
How much of it is actually ours, though, really? I mean, leaving aside the bit that it's stolen land to begin with, I mean, how many people actually own most of it?
If I had to guess, I would say that the left's attempt to wash away the term alien stems from their disdain of actual law.
I mean, the law sucks, with disdain is kind of warranted.
Since they want to avoid discussion of what federal immigration law actually requires.
Well, see, that's kind of funny because actually, I think we should discuss what federal immigration law looks like because most people have absolutely no fucking idea what it looks like. Most people don't realize that if you're a non-citizen and you get caught up in some immigration law shit, which is extremely easy, and because the entire system is unpredictable, you have no access to the courts. You have an administrative employee called an immigration judge who will have 5 minutes to hear your case amongst thousands. And that is like your only chance to actually assert any kind of due process rights or any claim to asylum, or even to just argue that actually your legal status should still be valid. Like, I mean, I don't think that it's the left, whoever they even mean by the left, who don't want to talk about what immigration law in the U.S. looks like. I think it's actually the people who like immigration law in the U.S. as it is, who really don't want to talk about it, because the minute you talk about it, you see the problem.
Which is everything they refuse to do, and their interest in washing away the overall value of citizenship.
Wait, you're the overall value of citizenship? Like, why exactly does the value of citizenship go down if we expand it to include everybody? Like, that doesn't give people who already had it less. It just means that other people are being treated better.
Remember, citizenship places a focus on nationality and sovereignty. The left has bought into the globalist vision of a borderless world, and their language...
Yeah, I mean, it's wild because they're talking about the Biden administration. Hey, River Rune, how you doing? And the Biden administration wasn't on Team Borderless World.
Reflect that.
I mean, I am. Fuck the borders. I mean, seriously, fuck all of it. Fuck immigration law. It shouldn't exist.
Left loves to say that illegal aliens are undocumented. Not only is that terminology not used anywhere in federal law.
It's funny that she mentions that, because you know what term is also not used in federal law? Illegal alien. In federal law, since we're talking about federal law, the question is a person on status, they have legal status in the U.S., or off status? Like, the term she used, that is not the term that is used in federal law. Alien is certainly used in federal law, which sucks. Actually, it's kind of a fucked up term to be using. Really, but I mean, but that's really nothing compared to how fucked up the edifice of like fucking immigration law is in the first place. But illegal alien is not the term that is used in the in U.S. immigration law.
But it is clearly designed to soften the concept of illegality by making it seem like it's just a technicality.
It is just a technicality. It is ridiculously easy to lose your legal status in this country.
In other words, if you are undocumented, it makes it sound like you can be here legally, but you're missing a few pieces of bureaucratic paperwork.
That is literally exactly what it is. That is exactly what it is. And it's all bullshit.
That is simply not the case.
Oh, okay, so she's going to explain how it's not the case. About how actually the fact that U.S. immigration law creates a situation where if you have a bad semester as a student and end up on academic probation, you can be deported for that.
If an alien has not gone through the appropriate process...
That's not the situation, though. That's not the reality. Like, most of the people who fall under undocumented, which is really an inaccurate term, which we really shouldn't use because of this, they did follow the process. But even if they didn't follow the process, who gives a fuck?
For obtaining a visa to enter the United States.
Something that is virtually impossible for most people in the world, it's worth noting.
Otherwise followed United States law to enter the United States. They are illegally here.
Who gives a shit?
Period. Hard stop.
Wait, so what, 2 periods then? What the hell is a hard stop?
Calling illegal aliens undocumented immigrants is the intellectual equivalent of calling someone who breaks into your house in the middle of the night an undocumented homeowner.
Except, see, here's the thing. I mean, I can see where that analogy is going, but like that would work a lot better if the people you were talking about had actually done anything comparable to that.
It is inaccurate, and it is designed to be inaccurate.
Like, she still has not explained what the horrors are. She said, like, that there were literal horrors that were being smoothed over with this language that the left, whoever that is using. And, like, what she came up with is the people aren't following the process. And it's like, wow, that's horrible. They're not following the process. Who gives a shit?
The term migrants or migration are just as deceptive.
How is it deceptive? I mean, they are literally doing the thing. They are migrating. They're coming from one place to another.
Left likes to use migrants and migration, not only because it sounds gentle, but it also creates confusion.
What confusion?
When people hear these terms, they know deep down that migration is seasonal. And
migration is not always seasonal, though. I mean, but then she also thinks that climate and weather are the same thing.
Circular. They think of
it is often circular, though. I mean,
birds or butterflies. They fly south. They fly north.
Yeah, like literally nobody actually thinks that's the case when we're talking about people, though.
And so on. And historically, we have had foreign nationals come into the United States for seasonal or agricultural work.
Yeah, also like almost slavery.
And then return to their home countries. it would be reasonable and accurate to refer to those individuals as migrant workers.
I mean, they also are the thing, but...
Because they ultimately return home. But make no mistake...
Okay, then tell me, where is the home of migrant birds, since that's your example you're using? Because the way it looks is actually their home is a bunch of places because they're constantly on the move.
The current mass illegal immigration we are seeing as a result of the Biden administration...
And I mean, if we want to be legally accurate, a lot of these people would have a valid claim to asylum if the U.S. followed international law. So it isn't even illegal.
Administration's intentional actions is not migration.
Yes, it is. It literally is. The people moving from one place to another.
These people are not migrants.
But they are. They're coming from one place to another. That's your whole objection to them.
It is an orchestrated invasion being led by the Biden administration.
An orchestrated invasion. Wow. Chat. What is that? How invasions work? Do you just sort of come into the country and then find a shitty job? Is that is that what the U.S. did when they invaded Iraq, for example? Did they just go in there and then like fucking find a Baghdad 7-Eleven to work at?
In conjunction with the Mexican cartels. The bottom line is, we win or lose political fights based on language.
I mean, honestly, if this is the best they've got on language, I'm really not worried, because this is just so badly thought out. All of the money that goes into this, like their arguments just suck shit. It isn't even good bullshit.
If you let the other side of the debate set the terms of the debate, you've already lost. In the context of immigration specifically, we have to start using more accurate language to describe what is going on and pegging our language.
I mean, talking about an invade, that used to be, when you would hear language like invasion, that used to be just something you would hear from like hardcore neo-Nazis a few years ago, you know. And now, like, this is just mainstream.
To existing law. If we can take back the language here...
You're not going to, though. Nobody likes you.
...elsewhere, we will win more of these fights. So, Bethany, I mean, these are some great examples. And another one...
You haven't really given examples.
...comes to my mind that has been completely co-opted by the left is gender.
Oh, this is going to be all the content warnings, of course. And yeah, Adam, I know. It's like when you hear these chuds, these people talking about Democrats, you could think that there was actually hope in the political system. You know, I mean, I remember they were calling fucking Obama a communist. It's like, if only. And that's why one of the times I will engage with chuds is when, if I encounter one who's saying something like that, I will be like, yeah, actually, communist here, I fucking hate him because he isn't one. So how are you going to deal with that? And what I've found is actually that kind of does, at the very least, cause a bit of stumbling, a bit of awkwardness, because these people have literally never encountered somebody who would actually call themselves that. So when somebody does and says, no, actually, fuck that guy, he's a right-wing asshole, I don't see why you even disagree with him on most things, then it actually confuses the hell out of him. Hey, Badger.
I know you have so much experience in the history of your professional life in dealing with this. Where are we today on this issue and the language and the words and the definitions?
Let's talk about the word gender. The word gender is no longer a polite way to refer to biological sex.
Well, I mean, it is.
Male or female.
Or intersex. Don't forget intersex. Don't forget non-binary.
The word now is completely toxic. It's no longer being used to mean male or female, but
yeah, it is. I mean, it just is.
Now how people identify, which is where we get this idea of gender identity. Katie, did you know that there are between 72 and 1,000 different kinds of gender?
Oh, oh God, no. Is she gonna say hydrogender? Is she gonna do the fucking God, what's her name? Angela Nagel thing of using the Wikipedia list of poorly attested gender identities and act like it's a real thing?
We should never use the word gender as conservatives. It's not specific and it's nonsensical.
Wait, I mean, you just said that it was very specific a second ago and that was what you objected to.
Instead, use the word sex or biological sex or male and female.
But, yeah, that doesn't...
And I don't care where you are in the administration, you will deal with the word gender. Speaking of sex, the next phrase that we're going to talk about is sex assigned at birth. Now, I just told you to use the word sex, and you may think that sex assigned at birth, that sounds great.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's accurate. Because literally it's just somebody had a look between somebody's legs for about 5 seconds and then wrote something down.
Well, actually it's not. It's the left's attempt to change biological fact and to try to normalize their belief that
What biological fact, though?
biological sex can change. Unfortunately, many folks, including solid conservatives, have accepted this.
Because it's just fucking obviously true.
And the danger in using this term. In fact, some conservatives have even taken this term and changed it slightly, gender as revealed at birth. The left is infiltrating our conservative organizations.
Well, they don't even like that. That's interesting.
Christian schools, and even churches. We must always be on guard. And when a new term is introduced, ask.
This isn't a new term. This has been around for, like, my whole life.
What is the genesis for this new term, and why was it introduced? If you see the term sex assigned at birth, delete it and replace it with biological sex.
Those aren't the same thing.
The next issue under gender is pronouns. Don't fall into the progressive left's trap.
The progressive left. It's not just the left. And this is the really scary left. It's the progressive left.
In regard to pronouns, don't use them in email signature blocks, on LinkedIn, and absolutely do not ask people what their pronouns are on your first day on the job. When I was at USAID,
What's interesting is that they would actually have to tell these people that.
Managers were getting training and were told that when they have new staff or have a staff meeting, they should go around the room and ask everyone what their pronouns are. Katie, if that happened to you, what would you do?
Yes, what are your pronouns, Katie?
I think political appointees, Bethany, great question, need to expect that they are going to be tested by career staff the day they walk in. So that question.
Well, yeah, they're going to find out just how much of a fucking chud they are.
Every political appointee should be prepared to deal with and answer, whether it's in
Well, what's the answer?
training. I don't think it'll take that long. It probably will be the first couple days on the job. So a political appointee is empowered. They are empowered because they are absolutely put in the position, whatever level it is, in order to implement the president's agenda. And that is the business of a political appointee and should be the business of all federal employees. So the answer is simple. We're here to implement the president's priorities and agenda.
But that's not actually what civil servants are there for. There's a whole fucking legal framework that they're also supposed to be implementing. It doesn't just disappear because somebody new gets elected. The law actually does have to change.
We are not here to discuss pronouns.
The next topic is gender-affirming care. Gender-affirming care and what the Biden administration is promoting.
They're not promoting my ass. They actually opened the door to these care bans in the state level.
Absolutely infuriating. especially.
Why is it why do you care? If you don't like gender affirming care, don't have any.
As for parents, we need to be protecting our children from these harmful, sterilizing puberty blockers.
They aren't sterilizing, and there's literally no evidence that they're harmful.
Cross-sex hormones and permanent genital mutilation. That's what gender-affirming care is, not care at all.
I mean, it does save lives, but I mean, it does, of course, save the lives of people that they don't want to save the lives of.
The idea that gender is fluid is evil.
Why is it evil? What makes it evil? Like, can you explain in one sentence what makes it evil?
And it is a major initiative of the Biden administration.
No, it isn't. But no, let's go back. You were just saying it's evil. Where's the evil part?
It's layered into each and every office, document, task force, and funding priority. Perhaps most commonly known are the changes to Title
Perhaps most commonly known. Like, is she a redwood?
9, giving institutions, schools, control over children and their gender preference, working against parents, mandating...
Well, not working against parents, working against abusive parents, yes. But a lot of parents, it's working with them.
Boys compete against girls.
And that's literally not happening.
This is all done with words. Words matter. Change the words, change the culture.
Like, what's wild is they started out on this thing claiming that that this was what the left was doing or something, whatever the fuck they think the left is. And I mean, now they're just kind of saying, yeah, we're going to just make up words and try to pretend that that's reality and that will change reality.
Now, Katie, I know that you've written several wonderful pieces on equity and you've done a lot of research on this.
Equity.
And the Biden administration has infiltrated equity into everything.
Man, like, they've found the whitest women to do this. Like, they don't even stand out against the paint on that wall.
What are your thoughts on equity for the next administration?
Well, it's a little heart-stopping, Bethany.
Wait, I mean, you just say that we never got to hear why gender-affirming care is evil, and now we're just moving on to equity. Like, I mean, this is so fucking lazy. Like, I mean, surely whoever came up with this realizes that if they say, treating trans people with respect is evil, that somebody might ask them why. And they don't even address that. It's like, it's heartening to know just how fucking slapdash this is.
And it's going to take a lot to rewind where we are right now.
Why would you want to?
With the left's definition of equity and how that's layered into all federal government documents. Roger Severino states it perfectly in the Project 2025 Mandate for Leadership book. Quote, under President Biden, the mission has shifted from promoting equity in everything we do, end quote, for the sake of, quote, populations sharing a particular characteristic, including race.
Yeah, like, okay, assuming that this was true, which it's really not. I mean, I'm sure the rhetoric has shifted to that, but there's not been much evidence that they're actually doing that. In fact, they've kind of been doing the opposite a lot of the time. But, like, why would this be bad? Like, are you going to explain why it's bad?
Sexuality, gender identification, ethnicity, and a host of other...
Wait, Roger Severino, gender is right in the Project 2025. Project 2025 didn't evil. These women need to get right down to the people who wrote Project 2025 and explain to them and like get them to remove the word gender.
Their categories. End quote. Equity no longer means all men are created equal, the cornerstone of our U.S. Constitution.
Yeah, I mean, notice all men. Except that that is not a quote from the fucking Constitution. That is the Declaration of Independence. The Constitution does not say that. It says that the equal protection of the laws shall not be denied.
But rather now mandates the government to dispense with unequal treatment in order to achieve
Why shouldn't they dispense with it?
what they believe to be equal outcomes.
Yeah, I mean, like, literally, do you not know what dispense with means? Like, dispensing with unequal treatment in order to get equal I mean, okay, so what's the problem? We'll leave aside that this isn't true. I mean, God, the Biden administration sounds so much better when these people are talking about them.
This creates divisiveness, not equality. There is no...
Oh, maybe it's just that equality creates divisiveness because the people who were already on top and getting shit that they didn't deserve, because other people were being denied shit they did deserve, get pissed off about that.
No unification under these principles. It is more of a competition of what class is more of a victim, so that particular class can receive the preferential treatment being handed out and mandated by the Biden administration. It's important to note that the very first executive order that President Biden signed just moments after his inauguration on January 20th of 2021 had to do with...
God, like, did they rehearse this, or is she just reading this for the first time? This delivery is just so painful. Leaving aside the bullshit she's saying, just the way she talks, it's fucking infomercial core.
Equity. The left applauded as Biden announced...
Based and Floby-pilled.
...his number one priority, which is advancing racial equity and support.
Yeah, I mean, he signed a thing that actually called for a committee to be formed to study the formation of a committee. Didn't fucking do anything.
For underserved communities throughout the federal government. As part of
okay, and why is that bad? Are you going to explain why any of these things is bad?
Order.
Because it actually, the way you do this, it sounds like actually hurting underserved communities is just an unallied good to you. And usually people who are trying to prep people to do propaganda for this stuff, they care about making sure that somebody can come up with a somewhat plausible sounding explanation for why it's bad.
Within 90 days, every single agency had to file an equity action plan with the White House.
Yeah, which is to say nothing. That's fuck all.
If you want to see or view what you will be up against, take a look at those plans.
Yeah, actually do take a look at those plans, because I'm guessing those plans were a whole lot of words signifying very little.
They're all online under the Office of Management and Budget. Since that time,
well, I mean, okay, but if the plans are so bad, why don't you tell us some of the stuff that's in those plans? So we can all hear about how bad the plans are. I mean, and the thing is, I'm not even saying the plans, they probably suck. I have a feeling there was very little actual actionable stuff in them. Because that's just how the fucking administration worked. They formed committees to study forming a committee.
But executive orders have been executed by the Biden administration about equity. The latest to date is to further advance racial equity.
So you're saying that's a bad thing. Why?
This entails new positions and responsibilities.
Well, explain to me, two very white women, why you feel that racial equity is a bad thing.
To be embedded into every single agency and office in the federal government. And there is also a directive...
I mean, that sounds based, actually. That sounds really good if that were true, which it probably isn't.
All funding that is given out by the federal government prioritize unequal treatment of the American people.
Well, no, I mean, you were just saying that it prioritized addressing the problem of unequal treatment. Like a minute ago, she was saying that it was dispensing with it.
The noxious tenets of critical race theory.
The noxious tenets of critical, like... I didn't know that anyone was renting from critical race theory.
and gender ideology should be excised from curriculum in every single public school in this country.
So, Katie, this is a lot.
Yeah, because, I mean, if there's one place where, like, fucking critical race theory, which is a legal theory that people can go through, I mean, if you learn about it, it's almost certainly, in law school, it's almost certainly because you took an elective. That needs to be excised from public schools, because I'm sure all of them are teaching critical legal theory.
To absorb. So how do you suggest that we tackle the problem? I know you were the head of a grant office at DOJ and you had a lot of paperwork. What are your suggestions?
Well, I found that developing a process for each type of document was crucial to reversing the words and definitions from the Obama administration. Here's an overall strategy to implement. First, look for any OMB, that's the Office of Management and Budget.
This is wild. She's having to explain to these political appointees what OMB is? Like, they just assume these people are the biggest fucking rubes. I mean, probably they're right about that. I would assume that they are.
White House Office of Management and Budget. Guidance. You'll want to instruct career employees that you, whatever level you are, you want to be informed of all OMB guidance and how it is being implemented internally. Oftentimes,
no, I mean, that's such a wonderful opportunity for malicious compliance, because you realize OMB is huge. They have tons of guidance. It's being implemented in millions of ways. You could just paper them under with this shit.
Careers will just get an OMB circular. Or
I mean, like, they could literally spend their entire time reading this shit and never finish by the time the administration was over.
OMB advice. And then they just go along and they either ignore it or they don't put it in. You want to be involved in the process. You want to say, every single thing that comes in, I want to make sure that it is actually being implemented. This can easily be handled at the senior advisor or even special assistant level.
Okay, I think this is one I'm gonna just switch over now. This is one that we'll just sort of come back from. I'm gonna come back to every now and then and switch over. I was thinking of looking at Aspen goldfish, because I had never actually seen that guy until yesterday, and just his entire fucking goldfish asshole look to him made me think that he was somebody worthy of a visit from a seagull. So I'm gonna switch over.
Some people say it's the biggest interview of all time. Yeah, probably the biggest interview that's ever happened.
Really? Like, how do you measure the size of an interview? Was it that long? Yeah. I mean, it's true. Like, I think everybody, because we're in a society where ignorance about this stuff is kind of the default. In fact, it's only recently that you could expect people to be anything other than ignorant about this stuff for the most part, which is precisely why reactionaries are freaking out about it. I mean, I think everybody deals with some ignorance on these things before either they realize that they are trans or some other, queer in some other way, or they realize that people they care about are. I think that's kind of a fairly normal developmental arc.
I gotta start with this. So, he's working for free with Doge.
Yeah.
He's kind of put a lot of his life on hold.
And, I mean, I just can't stress enough that one way that would be really effective to force him to reconsider his priorities would be a big fucking strike at all of his companies. Just shut him down one way or another. God, well, Jesus, this guy's fucking facial expressions. Look at this guy.
And You sued Twitter a number of years ago. You just made him pay you $10 million?
That's right. That's right. I sued from long before he had it. And I mean, they really did a number on me, you know.
No, I think actually it was you doing a number on you.
Okay. I sued, and they had to pay. They paid $10 million settlement.
Well, that doesn't sound so much like they had to pay as that they decided to. I mean, there have been a number of those where far-right people sue major media outlets, and the major media outlets, like, just knuckle under, and then, like, there was a thing around, it was, like, the so-called March for Life, back under the first Trump administration, and this, like, little Nazi shithead kid who was part of that was harassing some indigenous people who were also there, like, counter-protesting the march. And that got accurately reported. CNN just agreed immediately to a huge, ridiculously huge settlement. Other news outlets didn't. The other news outlets won and got court costs and attorney's fees. But CNN ended up forking over like $100 million to this little chud.
You're okay with that?
I mean, I left it up to the lawyers and you know the team running Twitter. So I said, you guys do what you think it makes sense.
I think it's funny.
I think it's a very low. I was looking to get much more money than that.
So you gave him a discount in the lawsuit.
He got a he got a big discount.
Wow, this is the biggest interview of all times. I mean, that's huge. Like, there's so many revelations going on here.
I don't think he even knows about it.
He's become one of your, if you read and believe the media, he's become one of your best friends. He's working for free for you.
Well, I love the president. I just want to
no, he's working for free for himself.
Care about that.
I don't care about that.
I know. I love the
you love the president.
I think President Trump is a good man, and
well, I mean, coming from Elon Musk. Well, look at this. Jesus, look at.
He's, you know.
It's nice the way he said that, you know? There's something nice about it.
It really is. You know.
Jesus, this is like...
Because...
oh, thanks. The goldfish picks his nose, too.
The president's been so unfairly attacked in the media. It's really outrageous.
Yeah, I mean, it's so unfair how people just point out the things he does.
And I've at this point spent a lot of time with the president, and not once have I seen him do something that was mean or cruel or...
Well, if Elon Musk doesn't consider something mean or cruel, I mean, that's a guy who will, like, swing a chainsaw around his, like, fucking 2-year-old son without taking any precautions. So, you know, I mean, he has very high moral standards.
Or wrong. Not once.
You know, I've known him for 30 years.
Yeah.
And I've never seen anybody take as much as he's taken.
Yeah.
And we've discussed
what, money?
This, and I'm like, how do you deal with it?
Did I have a choice?
Well, you would say that to me. I'm like, what am I going to do? Worry about it? And
it is what it is.
And then culminating in 2 assassination attempts, which resulted in your endorsement.
Wait, that resulted in the endorsement? He wasn't going to endorse him, but then what? He was like subject to 2 very incompetent assassination attempts, and he decided that, you know, if he's getting shot at by people who can't shoot straight, that then he deserves the endorsement. Like, what fucking sense does that make?
Well, I was going to do it anyway, but that was
it.
Precipitating event. Yeah.
It's crazy that there were 2 assassination attempts.
Well, there really was one. There was one. The other one, fuck knows what it was. It didn't get anywhere. No shot was actually fired. So we don't actually know what the hell that was. But there was the one, and it was utterly incompetent.
On him, and that somebody came that close to getting him, bro. They got his ear. Holy shit! Think about that. That's crazy.
A little bit.
Yeah.
The day
Isn't
of
that
the assassination.
insane?
I didn't know that.
What? The concept of ears?
Yeah. It's sped it up, but I was going to do it anyway.
Mr. President, with your indulgence, I'm convinced that people only know a little bit about Elon.
Yeah, well, the less they know about him, the more they seem to like him, so maybe you should keep it that way.
I don't think they know everything about Elon, because as I studied for and prepared for this interview, I learned a lot about you that I didn't know. I think people will think about Tesla. Democrats are demonizing you and trying to make...
Tesla, the company that has actually more than half of the cars it's ever manufactured have been fucking recalled. Worst workplace safety record of any of the auto manufacturers. Cars have a tendency to just sort of blow themselves up.
The country hate you.
Yeah.
I just want people to understand you a little bit better, and the person that you've gotten to know.
Yeah, I mean, they're detestable. They're like disgusting pieces of shit. And I would say actually all four. Like fucking, I mean, Sean Hannity's a piece of shit too. And then, I mean, Asmongold is a piece of shit goldfish. He's a piece of shit with facial expressions of a goldfish.
Now put a lot of trust in.
He's the Nazi Finding Nemo.
And, you know, just let's go over a little bit of your bio, starting with PayPal and how you became involved in Tesla and SpaceX.
So he's going to talk about how other people were doing that shit and he got involved. Oh, sorry to hear that. Good to see you, though, Phoenix. Always nice to see you here. It's been a really rough fucking week over here as well, which is why... Like, I have been off schedule on streaming for, like, the past 4 times now. I mean, it's just, it's just Sean Hannity sucking up to these two guys who are sucking each other off, and fucking Assman Goldfish over here, then, like, getting so fucking excited about it when, like, there's nothing. This is the biggest interview ever.
And Neuralink and all these...
Well, I mean, you know,
Yeah, it doesn't take long. Other people started those companies, other people created the technologies, and then he got in and forced them to call him a founder, though he had nothing to do with it because he doesn't know how to do anything. Yeah.
I think the way you think of me is like I'm a technologist.
No, you're not. Like... You clearly, I mean, motherfucker, you had the people who actually know the technological side of Twitter print out all the source code on paper.
I try to make technologies that improve the world and make life better.
Well, then you've really failed. You haven't come up with any technologies that improve anything. You made the fucking Cybertruck. That didn't improve the world. Oh, feeling like a burden is the worst. Yeah, that sucks. I am really sorry that you're going through that, and it sucks to just feel like that, especially when you know rationally it's not true. To just still have that shit nagging at you. That sucks. I am really sorry about that.
Yeah, and that's why I like my t-shirt says tech support.
Which is so ironic. You see, the t-shirt says tech support because every time he gets on a fucking computer, he needs to call tech support to help him out to figure out how to actually turn it back on again.
I'm here to provide the president with technology support. And now that may seem like, well, is that a silly thing? But actually it's a very important thing.
Well, except there's already people who do tech support for the feds. Like, they do actually have tech people.
Because the president will make these executive orders, which are very sensible and good for the country, but then they don't get implemented, you know?
Which is good. They shouldn't get implemented. They all suck. Oh, God. That's... I am really sorry about that. I mean, that is rough. Especially when you can't talk to the people you might otherwise talk to because they're the ones who actually are making you feel that way.
If you take, for example, all the funding for the migrant hotels, the president issued an executive order where, hey, we need to stop taking taxpayer money and paying for luxury hotels for illegal...
They're not luxury hotels.
Illegal immigrants.
They're not for illegal immigrants.
Which makes no sense. Like,
yeah, it doesn't make sense because it's literally just not true.
Do not want their tax dollars going to fund high-end hotels.
I thought that.
Well,
too, but apparently a lot of people were mad about this.
Which is weird because it literally isn't happening. Yeah, I mean, see, people don't want their tax dollars going to, like, provide lodging for refugees. What they really want is their tax dollars to benefit the white supremacist fail son of an apartheid emerald mine owner.
For illegals. And yet they were still doing that, even as late as last week. And so, you know, we went in there and we're like, hey, this is in violation.
Well, I've never actually seen Elon Musk talk before. And, I mean, the man seems like he's just a walking deepfake. Oh, I hate being dealt down like that. I mean, you know, especially when you're in a situation where you're actually feeling, you know, where you're feeling kind of desperate and people just take advantage of it. Yeah, $50 a week is nothing if they're living in fucking Potomac.
Presidential executive order.
So basically, Trump said not to do it, but they kept doing it. And
I mean, well, they weren't doing it to begin with.
Then Elon just turned off their button to do it.
Which is really kind of fucked up because actually, here's the thing. That was a congressional appropriation. Elon has absolutely no authority to be fucking overriding Congress. I mean, fuck Congress. Fuck all of Congress, actually. But, like, the idea that some random rich guy can just come in and unilaterally override this stuff, that's worse, actually.
Am I understanding this correctly?
No, you're not. But, I mean, that shouldn't be a surprise to anyone. Your job is not to understand things correctly.
Just took the button away?
It needs to
What
stop.
the fuck's with your eyebrows?
Oh.
Did somebody throw in flakes?
So
what are you tutoring?
So what we're doing here is one of the biggest functions of the Doge team is just making sure that the presidential executive orders are actually carried out. And this is, I just want to point out, this is a very important thing because the president is the elected representative of the people.
I mean, not really. Like, every single adjective there, every single word in that requires some kind of an asterisk. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, and it somehow, it's always the people who actually would have the money to pay properly who do this sort of shit. Like, people, it's amazing to me because, like, people who don't will really understand that you need to get, like, that you're depending on the money that you're getting paid and actually are much more likely to just pay what you, well, you know, pay what you're trying to pay. But what you need to get paid, and then people with money will be like, "No, we'll give you $10 an hour." It's like, fuck you. Yeah, I mean that is really rough to deal with. That is something. I mean, absolutely. That is worth $50 an hour, especially if it's only 1 hour a week, for fuck's sake. Yes, I think the one that everybody knows about is his trans daughter, who has utterly fucking cooked him on Twitter.
So it's representative.
Yeah, I mean, then they ought to be paying expenses. They ought to be paying for you to get like a taxi or something. I mean, that's just basic shit. When you pay for somebody. When you pay for somebody's service, you're like paying somebody. You gotta actually cover their expenses. Otherwise, they're paying for the privilege of working for you, which is just bullshit.
The will of the people, and if the bureaucracy is fighting the will of the people,
which people though? I mean, more than twice as many people didn't vote for this asshole as did. And nobody voted for fucking Elon Musk. Nobody even particularly likes him.
The president for implementing what the people want, then what we live in is a bureaucracy and not a democracy.
Well, I mean, as opposed to, a democracy, you see, is when one rich guy gets to just unilaterally decide what the government is going to spend money on. That's because that's really democratic. You're not. This is a thing that everybody struggles with. I mean, I don't really do tutoring, but as a freelancer, I struggle with this sort of shit all the time.
No. You're both aware. You have to.
I mean, he's right. I mean, like, fuck. I feel like the federal government and the people that work there are probably going to work in their best interest. And they don't have the same level of accountability that an elected representative has.
Well, how much accountability does Elon Musk have, though?
That's true, for sure.
Be keenly aware that the media and the punditry class, not that, you know, I think you've proven they have no power anymore because they threw everything they had at you and they didn't win. And that was...
well, no, they didn't really throw everything they had at him. They threw a fucking Kamala Harris at him. They threw, I mean, what they threw was the election. They put somebody up that nobody liked, who was committing a genocide that people hated, and refused to meet their voters halfway. Like, literally, it was the fucking producers. They did not throw everything. Like, all they would if they would have just said, vote for me and you'll get, like, universal health care free at the point of use, Trump, we wouldn't even have gotten to find out what color he was going to be on the map.
You know, the New York Times, Washington Post, 3 networks, every late night comedy show, 2 cable channels. They just drew.
It's kind of crazy how every comedy show has the exact same opinions, but there's tons of comedy online that's the opposite.
Well, except it's not comedy.
It's really, really popular.
No, it isn't. Like, name an example of one that's really, really popular, Goldfish.
Like, I feel like that's a little bit odd, isn't it, right?
What, that there is... So what's odd? That there is comedy and there are people who do comedy with different opinions? Like, what's odd?
Now they're crying about it? Yeah, they're in comedy? They do? Yeah, I would say so.
They threw everything, lawfare, weaponization.
Sure.
And...
I mean, but they didn't use the last resort of a candidate people actually want who does things people actually want.
Now I see they want you two to start, they want a divorce. They want you two to start hating each other.
I mean, I don't care whether they hate each other as long as they're gone. Like, I mean, if they could love each other all they want if they're in one of those carbon fiber submersibles with a big fucking hole in it. I'm fine with them, you know, I don't really care how they feel about each other then. But...
And they try, President Elon Musk, for example. You do know that they're doing that to you.
Oh, I see it all the time. They tried it. Then
well, yeah, because, I mean, like, if you look at the body language of him, like, giving these interviews from the Oval Office, which I really don't think, from behind the desk even. I mean, and it's like, on the one hand, this is like fucking, you know, symbolic bullshit. But on the other hand, you look at that and it's like, you look at the way who's standing, who's actually talking and everything in the Oval Office. And it's like, you get a feeling that there's somebody who has the say in this relationship and it isn't Trump.
Stop. That wasn't. They have many different things of hatred. Actually, Elon called me. He said, you know, they're trying to...
Yeah, I mean, just... And I would say, look, I mean, you point out what transport to and from their house is costing you. And say you have to include that in there. I mean, one thing you can do is say, okay, if we're going to do less than if you would like a discounted rate, then we're going to have to I'm going to have to cover the transport separately. Or you can pay a comprehensive rate that is higher, and that includes transport or something like that. And you do it in a way that makes sure you at least come out with the $50 that you need.
Drive us apart. I said, absolutely. No, they said, we have breaking news. Donald Trump has ceded control of the presidency to Elon Musk. President Musk will be attending a cabinet meeting tonight.
Well, except that, I mean, it does kind of look like that.
at 8 o'clock. And I say, it's just so obvious. They're so bad at it. I used to think they were good at it. They're actually bad at it, because if they were good at it, I'd never be president.
Well, yeah, I mean, they're throwing the fucking election. That's the only reason that you are even there now. Like, literally, it isn't because anyone likes this guy, because hardly anyone does. Like, out of 330 million people, 30 million voted for him.
Because
I think that, like, it's kind of bad that anytime that you're actively working to undermine the government, like, or undermine the president, I feel like it's kind of that's like, it's not a very good thing to do, right?
Really? Is that how you generally feel about undermining the government? I mean, I would have thought that it depends a little bit on what the government's doing.
And I felt the same way with Biden. Like, I didn't like how some people were like, oh, we're not going to support this guy at all. Like,
wow.
You've still got to support this guy. He's still your fucking president.
Like, why do you have to, though? Why do you have to support him? I mean, surely if we're going to buy into sort of bourgeois democratic theory, the idea is that he's supposed to support us.
Right?
I mean, obviously, bourgeois democratic theory is nonsense. It does not work that way. Because the government is basically an executive committee of the capitalist class. But that's like the propaganda with which it's sold, is that actually they're supposed to be doing what we want. I mean, that's where you get the word mandate. Because a mandate literally means an order that is given to somebody. And if you wanted to actually look at what people are saying they would actually like, then the mandate that, like, every president in my lifetime has received has been to do the exact opposite of what they do.
At a certain point, but when you're working actively to destabilize the government and to make it worse for political goals, I don't know, it's treason?
And no, that's not treason, actually. I mean, but I have to say, liberals have really created a dangerous climate by their inflationary use of the word treason. I mean, like, one actually really good thing in the U.S. Constitution is that they define treason very narrowly. They defined treason very narrowly because they kept getting accused of it, and they didn't want that to keep happening. So, like, no, undermining the government isn't treason. Starting a war against the government is treason.
I don't know. Did you? Not really. I mean, well, like, I supported Biden for sure. Like, I didn't...
No, well, I mean, that is, like, the worst thing that he could possibly have said about Biden.
Want to see Biden fail, if that makes sense, right?
I mean, I did.
Right?
Like, especially at the genocide. I think that when people try to do genocide, they should fail at it.
I didn't agree with Biden. I wanted a different policy. I wanted, like, different...
So what you're saying is you would have actually not liked him to succeed then. Because if you don't want the thing to be implemented, like, that he's doing, then you would not want him to succeed at implementing it.
And things to happen, but I didn't...
Oh, Phoenix. I think I think practically the entire population just needs a fucking gap year. I think we all just need, like, a sabbatical or something. Everybody but, like, about, well, like, motherfuckers like Elon Musk and something just need like a couple of years of no bullshit where we can just sort of recover from just how fucked up things have been. Yeah, I know. I mean, it is entirely comforting that this motherfucker, Elon Musk, has got control over the payment initiation system of the federal government. Like, there's no way that he would possibly just be using that to pay himself huge amounts of money.
I didn't want to see him fail as a president. Does that make sense?
I mean, it doesn't, actually.
I think nobody in history has ever gotten more bad publicity than me.
Oh, really? I mean, I can think of people.
I could do the greatest...
I mean, like, let's say, here's somebody, I mean... First of all, it's like bad publicity does not mean undeserved bad publicity. But, like, if you want to see really bad publicity, if you want to see a president who got no end of shit from the media, I'm talking about the media in his own country, mind. Hugo Chavez. The fucking media, which was overwhelmingly owned by billionaires, absolutely hated him. Absolutely, I mean, said just the most racist shit about him, like the most like defamatory, like conspiracy theory bullshit. I mean, they were smearing him every single day in just the wildest terms. So, and I mean, and they had to make that shit up for the most part. Yeah, please, just the trouble is going through these things alone, I think, more than going through everything sucks right now. I mean, okay, not everybody, not everything. Like, I mean, I think that what goes on in chat, for example, here doesn't suck. I think it's a cozy space. I think it's, I think we've got a very nice thing going on there. But in the world as a whole, things just fucking suck. And the only thing for it is for us to just try to support each other the best we can as we try to figure out a way to turn it around. I think nobody can handle this shit on their own because it's just too much shit. But, with other people to, at the very least, provide moral support. And then there's maybe some kind of a chance. But I mean, I think the problem fundamentally is when we feel like we're going through this alone, or when we are going through these things alone. I mean, I couldn't handle these things alone. I don't think anyone else can, because there's just so much. And yeah, I mean, it's ridiculous to be asked to be strong all the time. Like, nobody should have to be constantly strong. I mean, it's a good thing to be able to be, certainly. It's a useful thing a lot of levels. But, like, people occasionally need to be able to just fucking lie down and relax and not have to constantly be bouncing back from some bullshit or other. Oh, okay. The Goldfish's chat is saying, no, you did not support Biden. I mean, which, honestly, it's like, fuck Biden, actually. But it is time for me to wrap up. Thank you to everyone who joined in. I hope you enjoyed the stream, and I'm glad to see all of you. And I will be back at 11:30 p.m. U.S. Eastern Time on Friday, and perhaps we can continue talking about this in the Discord in a little bit. Have a good night, and I hope things get better for you, Phoenix, and I hope maybe we can all kind of think of a way to, a strategy to improve the situation in some way, in at least some ways, or something like that. Yeah, and what we can do mutual aid-wise, absolutely. Like, drop your links again. Absolutely do that. Drop those in the Discord so that, we can share them and stuff, and have a good night.